Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to my lane. This is your host, Lane, and I'm really excited to be here, guys. And today I wanted to talk about the rise of AI child abuse material. Now, the reason why I wanted to talk about this was because, the other day I was like scrolling on my phone, on my Instagram, on my For You page, and I saw this like really creepy picture. I was like, is this serious right now? Is this for real? And I saw this picture of it was an AI generated image of a woman child hybrid. And, this being, it had a woman's body and yet a child's face on it. And what this being was doing was working out. It had like a kettle. And started working out, and it was doing like deadlifts or something, but like posing really provocatively, like butt out type of thing. And then this child face had saliva coming out, like she had like her mouth open with like saliva coming out, and I was just like, this is clearly child pornography bait. If you would have seen it, like I debated posting it on here so you guys could see, but like I don't even want to show it. And I started going to this page, to these pages' content, and what I saw, I was just like, because this page had 44K followers on there, and it had nothing but AI generated images of children. Now, what was really creepy about this was that all of these children had like full face of makeup on, images of little girls having like sleepovers, and you just keep scrolling and it's just children. And you have to ask yourself, like, who goes behind their computer and starts typing, generate this image of a child, like, nonstop? Like, that's really weird. And you might tell me, because I know there's going to be people that are going to be like, well, it's just someone's just expressing their creativity. It's just art, whatever. But, no, if you were to see what I mean, you would be like, this is really creepy. But what definitely sold it to me, that this page was intended to bait people who are attracted to children, pedophiles, it was when I saw this image of a toddler. Now, she had pajamas on, but she was like looking like provocatively at the camera. And even though she had pajamas on, like her shoulder was like exposed. And that's when I was like, okay. Why? Why would you create that image, bro, unless you're creepy? And that sold it to me. I was like, yep, this page is a page of degeneracy. I was quick to report it. But it really got me thinking about the impacts that AI is going to be having in our culture. AI is advancing very quickly. It's the new internet. It's the new computer of our generation, when the internet first came out, it was quick to transform everything and how society worked. And I think AI is the next step in that. So we're going to be we're going to be walking in new territory that we haven't before, with new dangers. And therefore, I think it's so important to talk about, because the more I looked into it and the type of cases, real life cases that there were, the more I realized how important this is to talk about. So yes, guys, that's what we're going to explore, the growing problem of AI child pornography. Because the shocking reality is that child pornography keeps growing. And it's exploding also because of the new AI technology. Okay? The fact is that there are deep fakes out there. There are synthetic videos. And what predators are not doing is using actual videos of real child rape victims and using AI tools to edit their face and add a different face on there to that real video. So the video of this victim gets recycled over and over and over and over again with different faces, different, details changed. And I think that itself is very problematic, right? And the other thing that these predators do is they'll use real adult pornographic videos. Again, use that AI technology and edit the face of the adult actor or actress, and then add the face of a child on there. which is very similar to what I was seeing in the image that I talked about earlier that I saw on my Instagram feed, because the body was that like of a grown woman, but the face was that of a child. It was a really disturbing hybrid to see. And this is the other really creepy thing that they do, is that they'll use the faces of famous children to create new imagery of known victims. So think about how creepy that is, that you could be a public figure. Think about our child actors of the past, or actresses like Selena Gomez or Justin Bieber, or, I can't, Miley Cyrus. People can actually now get their pictures or videos and then use it to create this disgusting content. Just think about the repercussions or the impacts that this would possibly have on celebrities. We already know that child actors and child musicians have a really hard life and have a hard time assimilating in Hollywood culture. They already have problems. A lot of them fall into drug addiction. Now imagine knowing that on top of that, of all those pressures, there are predators out there using their images and videos to create AI sex abuse material. And the concerning thing is that there is a spirit of perversion that is just rampant in our culture. We have a society that is so open and has normalized the consumption of pornography. And the fact is that consuming pornography, even if you're consuming legal adult pornography, your likeliness of the future you consuming child pornography goes higher. Okay? Because the facts are this: there was an increase of proportion of offenders aged 18 to 25 years in 2006 and 2009 compared to the year 2000. In 2006, there were an estimated 3,672 arrests for child possession, compared with 1,713 arrests in the year 2000. In a 2024 report by the Internet Watch Foundation, they found that 3,500 new AI-generated images of child abuse material have been uploaded on the same dark web that they previously analyzed in just October of 2023. And now these images are getting more hardcore and more intense, reaching category A abuse, meaning that they're able to generate very complex and hardcore scenarios. And the Internet Watch Foundation also found that this AI-generated sex abuse material is now being found on the clear web, including commercial sites. So it's no longer just in the dark web, it's leaking into the mainstream, which I think might explain why I saw that disgusting image on my For You page on Instagram. And I'm the type of person, I always think there's an evil agenda. I never think that, there's a glitch or it's just a coincidence. I feel that they're trying to push the sexualization of children to be normalized. And if we want to address and tackle this problem, we have to tackle the root cause of this, and that is the pornographic industry. And I know that makes a lot of people uncomfortable, because I know a lot of people like to consume porn. And you might be watching this and think, I only watch adult porn, I have my fetishes, whatever, but I don't consume that. What does that have to do with me? But the fact is that this industry drives and feeds on the exploitation of children. And the fact is that even if you don't consume child pornography, the facts are this: the more someone watches pornography, the more likely they are to consume more extreme forms of sexual content, including child abuse imagery. It's essentially a snowball effect. And just think about this for a second. Think about how many things we have normalized in our society because of pornography. Then we've normalized things into the mainstream like BDSM. We've normalized, furries. We've even allowed them in like drag queen settings where people dance naked in front of kids. Like that's not an accident. That's a result of a society that is okay having pornography in the culture. Think about how many stories we hear of women in relationships with men that are addicted to porn, and the way that these men justify this is, well, I'm not really cheating, babe, it's not real. I would never talk to them. A lot of men, I'm not saying all, but a lot of men, and even women too, have normalized this idea of following half naked Instagram models. We've normalized masturbating to women's images online. Like it's we keep normalizing the dehumanization of people. Just think about how many women have normalized posting pictures half naked on their Instagram, and they call it empowerment, right? So we just keep normalizing perversion after perversion, and we don't realize how sick we are. And then we wonder how this like child AI pornography thing is just kind of exploding. And it's like, well, look at the things that we've normalized. And if you're a consumer of porn, I want you to think about this, because there is tons of data that again have been correlated with the increased likelihood of consuming child pornography is determined by how much you consume porn. So here are some key studies. A study found that child pornography users exhibited higher levels of internet addiction as compared to non-users. Research also indicates that men who score higher on sensation-seeking measures report frequent pornography use. Research indicates that men who score higher on sensation-seeking measures and report frequent pornography use are more likely to consume child pornography. The probability of child pornography consumption is much higher among those who frequently watch adult pornography. And there's also tons of evidence out there that the younger you are exposed to pornography, the more likely you are to seek other more degenerate forms of content, including child pornography, because you have been conditioned from a very young age to find these things normal. You have become desensitized, and therefore you need to seek more extreme content over time to reach that same initial high. And here's my question to you, and I know this is going to make a lot of viewers uncomfortable, because we immediately get defensive when we're told this. Let's be real here. Why do you want to continue to consume porn when the studies show that the more you consume it, the more likely you are to consume child porn at some point? And you might think like, whoa, Lane, like, hey man, I've been watching porn for years. I have never watched that garbage. Like, I have morals, I draw the line. But here's the thing. That doesn't mean anything. Do you guys know how many people I've met that have told me I can control my alcohol, that, for a while were, and then a couple years down the line, they become full-blown alcoholics? Do you know how many people have told me I can control my drug use, my weed use, I'm never going to do crack or coke or whatever, I just stick to weed, and then a few years from now, they become full-blown coke addicts? You guys know how many times I have heard people say, I will never be that person, or I will never do that, and then become exactly the thing they said they would never be. You don't know who you're going to be 1 year from now. You don't know who you're going to be 5 years from now. You don't know who you're going to be 10 years from now. Don't say that this will never happen to you, because think about this. We hear stories all the time of CEOs or politicians or even pastors suddenly getting caught with child pornography, and a lot of times these people end up committing suicide because they can't bear the knowing that the whole world found out that they're consuming child pornography. But let me ask you this. Do you think these people just woke up one day and decided to consume child pornography? How do you guys think that these people got to that point? How do you guys think they got to a point where they were willing to consume content that may destroy their lives and their careers? And the fact is that I can guarantee you that the reason they got to child pornography is because there were a series of repetitive, habitual habits of porn consumption that over time led them to more degenerate content, and in the end, it led them to child pornography. And the fact is that when you watch pornography, you let in a spirit of perversion and lust into your soul. So you're not only just watching porn to, fulfill your desires of the flesh. now you've opened up the door to evil spirits. I'm someone who believes in the spiritual world, and I believe that the things you do can open up the doors to the demonic. So not only are you consuming this to satisfy your flesh, but I believe you're also now trying to satisfy the desires of these evil spirits that you've allowed in through consuming pornography. So now you have a spirit of perversion that's now in your head, right? That's in your soul, wanting more and more and more. Because wanting to consume child pornography, it's not normal. That is a sign of spiritual sickness. Consuming pornography in general is a sign of spiritual sickness. But man, you have gone far deep if you start consuming child pornography, man. That's another level. So don't think that you are free from this. You don't know what demons you're going to invite in. This is not something you play around with. Because those people, those pastors, those CEOs, these politicians, I promise you, they never saw themselves being in that position 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And that's a result of their consistent use of pornography. And the fact is that the more we live in a sexualized society, the more likely we are to try to rationalize the sexualization of children. Because I'm already hearing arguments that, it's okay for people to make AI generated content of children that doesn't involve real children. Like, I'm not even talking about like deepfakes, but like just 100% AI generated content of child abuse material. And consumers will argue that, it doesn't involve real children, therefore there isn't real harm. Therefore, what's the problem? Isn't it better than these pedophiles actually going out there and abusing children? Isn't this a good segue to their issues? And the answer is no. And one example of somebody defending this is Dennis Prager. If you don't know who Dennis Prager is, he's a prominent figure in the conservative media space. And he always gave me weird vibes. Like, there's always something about him that just kind of like gave me the ick, but I couldn't quite explain why. And then I saw this clip and I'm like, yeah, that kind of explains why. But Dennis Prager himself defends AI generated child abuse material in a podcast with Matt Fradd. And I want you guys to take a listen to this.
Suppose a man says, I view animated child porn. So there's no real victim in that sense of child pornography, which we both agree is horrendous. And by viewing animated child porn, it prevents me from acting out sexually on a child. Now, I deny that. I think that pornography inflames us to then want to act those fantasies out, and I think there's good studies that back that up. But surely you wouldn't say to the man who views animated child pornography, that's not bad so long as you don't act it out. Wouldn't you want to help this poor sick dude?
Yes, I would, but I'm thrilled that he's not acting it out. I mean,
agreed.
Okay,
of course.
Well, that's big.
Yeah.
We're both thrilled that he might have a poor substitute, but it is a substitute if that were the case. No child is being used. Yeah. It's all animated.
Yeah.
And he.
But would you use the word evil of animated child pornography? Because I certainly would.
No, I would use evil only with behavior. That's where we might differ. Forgetting the sex issue. You can't be.
God, just look at Matt's face. That's like everybody's expression right now.
Evil. You didn't do evil if you thought evil. You did evil if you committed.
If I'm masturbating to animated pictures of pornography, I'm not doing something evil.
That's correct.
Yeah, I think that's despicable. Yeah.
Really?
Yes, of course.
He's like, oh, really? He's shocked. This man is shocked. Like, what the fuck?
Who is being hurt? You have to have a victim.
Oh, I'll tell you, there's at least two people being hurt. There's the person who's poisoning himself by encouraging him to think acting out on children, and there's also the animator.
Okay, wait a minute. We both are aching for him not to have those fantasies. I agree with you, but
you won't call it evil.
I won't call a fantasy evil.
So props to Matt for pushing back on this because, man, that was not a good look for Dennis. Now, I'm going to show you another clip from this same interview of Dennis that might explain why he doesn't find this evil. And I think it really says a lot, and it proves my point about the studies I was referencing earlier.
Yes, I was influenced by my parents' marriage. As we're all influenced by our parents' marriage. If you see your father beat your mother, you think that's normal, and you end up beating your wife. Of course, my father, I mean, the thought that he would ever lift it, he wouldn't. It's so inconceivable to me. All he did was tell his sons how much he loved their mother.
Beautiful.
I mean, constantly. So what I saw was a man got Playboy and loved his wife for 72 years. She knew he got Playboy and loved her husband and knew he loved her for 72 years. So that's what I saw. And I'm not going to sit here as their child and say, this was really awful. When I can't say it because I would be lying.
Did you guys catch that? His childhood and his family dynamic, I think, explains a lot as to why Dennis finds this to be normal, because he doesn't object that it's evil. Now, I want to make a note that in the past, Dennis has defended pornography before, and I can only assume that he consumes it himself. I don't know for sure, but based on everything he has said, if he doesn't think there's really quite an issue, and I am assuming that he has justified in his head that it's okay to do so. But I want you guys to notice how his father was also a victim of the pornographic industry, because he had Playboy in his marriage, even though that is considered sexual immorality and, frankly, a huge disrespect to his wife. Dennis claims that they were very happy and that there was no issue because of the Playboy, and I have a hard time believing that. I have a hard time believing that Dennis's mom was 100% okay with this. And I feel like Dennis is the type to like jump through hoops to try to justify something in his mind. But I also don't know. For all I know, the wife could be okay with it. However, I would also say that she's also a victim of the lies of the pornographic industry, because in her mind she has concluded that it's normal for men to do these things in their marriage. She's probably conceived of the lie that all men have needs, men need variety, and that therefore they need to seek other women through other means, right? That it's okay to watch other women and, fantasize about other women as long as they don't actually do it physically, but they're still doing it with that intention. So I find that she's also a victim. But, in this weird dynamic, the dad of Dennis is also the perpetrator, because now he has also opened the doors for Dennis to see this, to normalize in his mind that consuming Playboy while being married is okay. And I think that's part of why Dennis can conceive in his mind as he got older that consuming porn is okay. Well, my dad did it. It was normal. We had this happily ever after family. So therefore, it's okay for me to do it. I still had all the love. He says that it was a happy family. Dennis, in a weird way, has also been a victim of the pornographic industry. It just, these lies, this manipulation, this normalization of a sexualized culture just keeps getting passed through generation to generation, to the point that Dennis is now so desensitized by this that he can't even outright and say that a fantasy is evil. I feel like this is the argument that we're just going to be hearing in the culture. As long as no kids are really harmed, it's better than the alternative. But this defense can still normalize and perpetuate the exploitation of children. We have to consider the dangers of normalizing this behavior. If AI-generated child abuse material continues to thrive in spaces where it's deemed harmless, it sets a dangerous precedent, right? It tells society that these kinds of materials are tolerable, even if they don't involve real children. And this rationalization, I think, in my opinion, is so dangerous, because it underestimates the harm that can happen when these images are created and then distributed. Okay, because AI is only getting more advanced, more precise, more realistic. So the more that people generate AI child abuse content, the more realistic it's going to get, to the point where we're not even going to know if it's AI generated or if it's a real life image or not. This argument that, no real child is harmed, right? Like, you must not understand how human psychology works, dude, because our brains cannot always tell the difference between fantasy and reality, especially in an over advanced AI society. And the fact is that repeated exposure to simulated images and videos, they can condition your desires and then lessen your moral resistance to acting upon them. And there are studies in media psychology that show that repeated engagement with images and narratives, they alter your perception in this behavior. This idea that you can just consume something just because it's not real and it doesn't have impacts, because it's not real, because it's behind a phone screen, because no one's getting harmed. Like, that is ridiculous. You are harming yourself. You're reconditioning yourself. And the viewer is continuously consuming material that normalizes the sexualization of children. And it's not a stretch to suggest that their perception of real children that they then encounter outside of AI imagery, they're going to start sexualizing these kids as well. Because they've programmed their brains to only see children as sex objects. That now they're going to see children, potentially your children, as objects of sexual gratification. Aristotle himself argued that moral virtue is cultivated through habit. Okay, so if a culture fosters habits of looking at children through sexualized lens, even if it's through artificial means, it's going to begin to erode our instinctive moral rejection of such behavior. And therefore, our understanding of children is going to change. Already for the past several years, the culture, the radical activists have already been trying to sexualize our children, by changing words. Instead of pedophile, it's now minor attracted person. They try to use radical trans ideology to alter our perception of children. The radical activists try to push for drag queen story hour. They try to push drag queens being half naked dancing in front of children. They try to normalize men going into women's spaces, women's bathroom, girls' locker rooms. They try to argue that children are old enough to consent to life-altering decisions like puberty blockers or surgery. That's not an accident. That is a systematic approach to normalize the sexualization of children. Before anyone tells me, I'm exaggerating, like the amount of books that I saw of LGBT, or something that is like trans-friendly books for teens and kids, we're often talking about masturbation and pornographic topics in these books. So please don't tell me how there's not an agenda to normalize the sexualization of children. And the fact is that normalization is very slow, it's insidious, and they slowly push the boundaries of what's considered acceptable. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, I don't know how to say this guy's name, okay? But he warned about the dangers of transvaluation of values, meaning where there was once condemned behaviors are then reframed as neutral or even good. What once was unthinkable gradually becomes tolerated, accepted, and finally defended. Dude, just think about the radical trans ideology. This didn't just happen overnight. This was a process where, some things began tolerated because we didn't want to come off as bigots or transphobes. And then we had people accept it. And then finally people were defending puberty blockers. People were defending drag queens dancing naked in front of kids. And we were called crazy. We were called conspiracy theorists. And this is the precise danger with AI-generated sex abuse material. Because even if no real child is directly harmed in the production, the very existence of such material shifts cultural attitudes towards children. And if society begins to view these images as harmless, because they involve no real physical abuse, the idea of sexualizing children is not just entertained, but excused. And I refuse to excuse this. So I don't want to hear anybody's argument of no child is hurt, therefore it's permissible. Like, dude, that is moral relativism at work, okay? This idea that something can be morally neutral because, it's not causing directing harm is dangerous. Okay, moral laws don't just exist to prevent, immediate harm. They also exist to shape a just and dignified society. The philosopher Immanuel Kant argued that human dignity must be preserved not just in action, but in intention. So to treat children, even in artificial, AI-generated form, as objects of sexual gratification violates the principle that human beings should not be reduced to just objects of another person's pleasure. Even if the child of the image does not really exist, the concept being indulged does. And that is inherently corrupt. And as a society, me as an adult, you as an adult, it is our responsibility to protect the innocent. It is our duty to protect the future of this country, of our civilization. This is something people don't think about. We're also indulged in our lives and we don't really care about the next generation. We have this fuck them kids attitude in our society, but it's no. Dude, they are our future. What's the point of our achievements, of our greatness as individuals, if we're gonna let it go to shit for the next generation? I don't get it. It is our responsibility to protect the innocent. Philosopher Edmund Burke said, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing." I love this gloss, guys. It's by Ritual of the Field. No, I'm not being sponsored. I just felt like showing it off because I love this thing. It's so good. But anyways, Christian, even in Christian, I can't talk. Even in Christian theology, dude, it warns about the corruption of the soul through the indulgence of sin. We need to get off this idea that because it's behind a phone screen, because it's just an image, that it's not hurting you. That's ridiculous, dude. Even doom scrolling is hurting you, okay? Everything you do has an impact, okay? And even Christ himself said, "Whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to stumble, it would be better for him if a millstone were hung around his neck and he were thrown into the sea." So even Christ is warning us that we have a responsibility to protect our children. And that means a variety of things. And I think what people don't want to hear is that also means you have to stop supporting the porn industry, because the porn industry is evil. It purposely tries to seek people who are younger and younger and younger to consume their garbage so that they can produce Dennis Pragers that don't find seeing children in a sexualized way as evil. That is their whole goal. The goal of the pornographic industry is to dehumanize people. Okay, so now let's talk about in real life cases that I have found that involved AI technology. Let's look into the case of Neil Darlington. Okay, he's this guy, 52-year-old man from the United Kingdom. So what happened is that Neil was in an online chat room and he was talking to these two girls, an 11 and 14-year-old, and these girls sent Neil an image of themselves, fully clothed. And Neil then used AI to manipulate the images of these girls that were fully clothed into sexually explicit pictures, and then threatened to send these images to the children's family and friends. Now, what Neil didn't know is that these girls were actually decoys created by police officers. So they weren't real. They were actually just cops, And so immediately this guy was caught. And I think cases like this is also really going to challenge how the justice system and, our society as a whole even handles these kind of situations. Wondering, should the sentence be the same as if it were to happen to an actual children? In my opinion is it doesn't matter if this was, if they were decoys. You should be charged exactly the same as if it were actual people. In fact, they should be charged more in both scenarios, because oftentimes our justice system is way too lenient on these kinds of people, and I think they should all be hanged. That, is that so controversial to say? I don't think so. But yeah, Neil, You idiot. Now here's another case.
A former Charlotte child psychiatrist was sentenced to 40 years in prison after prosecutors found him guilty of producing and possessing child pornography.
Queen City News Chief Business Correspondent Taylor Young has been following this case. Taylor, you're joining us here inside the studio. You learned that this man worked at Atrium Health in Charlotte.
Yeah, Alicia, for more than 5 years, a hospital spokesperson says he was employed from October 2016 to December 2021. And I actually spoke with a parent of his former patients. The families say they are shocked to hear about the crimes he is being accused of. Now, this is 41-year-old David Tatum. Court documents show between 2016 and 2021, he possessed pictures and videos of child pornography. Prosecutors say he secretly recorded victims, including an 18-year-old, during an outpatient visit. Evidence presented at trial shows Tatum also used artificial intelligence to change clothed images of minors, making them sexually explicit.
In essence, he would use a web-based artificial intelligence application to literally alter the images of clothed minors, transitioning that into child pornography. Two of the images, for an example, that were used were modified from a school dance photograph, and then another was a photograph commemorating the first day of school.
Now, we did reach out to Atrium Health regarding Tatum's sentencing. A spokesperson with the hospital said, in part, "We are deeply troubled that someone entrusted to heal and guide children be involved in such disturbing and unacceptable behavior. When we first learned of the possibility, we took immediate action to keep Dr. Tatum away from patients. He was immediately suspended, then terminated from his contract to practice with us."
Dude, this case is sick. And it makes you wonder, did he decide to pursue this career as a child psychiatrist because of his fantasies that he had? You know, because one of the arguments we hear for people defending AI child porn is that, well, you know, this is better than the alternative of them actually hurting kids. But I don't know how someone can go into this field and have this like passion and wanting to protect children, and then out of nowhere have this switch in their lives where now they're sexualizing them. Like, that's a very strange dynamic, and I'm more inclined to believe that the reason he decided to pursue this field is because he was already consuming all these like perversions through the media that he was watching, that it started to manifest in his real life. Here's another case that happened in Florida.
And a Martin County man facing alarming allegations this evening. Detectives say he took a photo of a young girl living in his neighborhood, then used artificial intelligence to create child porn using her photo.
This is our first case in Martin County where we've seen AI taking a regular headshot and then turning them into child porn, and it's alarming to us.
This is a suspect, 51-year-old Daniel Warren, and according to authorities, is facing 17 child pornography charges. The suspect used a picture he took of an underage girl he knew.
It's pretty scary when you look at this stuff. If you just looked at it briefly, you would think it's a real photograph. It's the technology has got to the level. It's very scary. What he does, he takes the face of a child, and then he sexualizes that, removes the clothing, and poses the child and engages them in certain sexual activity, and that's the images that he's making with this AI. He was very friendly to many of the neighborhood children as well as the other families, and so it was an activity that, you know, happened in the shadows.
These kids did not even know they were victims. So we are fighting a new style of crime.
Again, this case itself proves that just having AI imagery, videos, whatever, of children is not enough, because they keep reprogramming their minds to sexualize children to the point that now these predators can look at your own kid, see them in this sexualized lens, and decide to take a picture of them for their gratification. Just think about how scary that is, that, like, you know, you want to post a picture of your kid on Facebook because you're happy, you know, they're graduating kindergarten, and the fact that, like, some sicko can take that image and then use AI to make child abuse material with it. Like, just think about how sick that is. And I think it also signals to parents that we should be careful about posting pictures of kids online, because of the technology that's out there. And this is also a reminder, don't let strangers take pictures of your kids, because again, we don't know what they're going to be using it for. And it's really sad that we have to think about these things. Like, we can't just allow someone to take an innocent picture. I think it's also just really important that we ourselves protect our hearts and our souls from pornography. In Matthew chapter 15 verses 19 to 20, Jesus says, "For out of the heart proceed evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witness, blasphemies. These are the things which defile a man, but to eat with unwashen hands defileth not a man." Okay, so this reveals that the heart is really just a breeding ground for all forms of perversion. And just because we feel we have this desire doesn't mean that we need to feed it. We need to pursue past the flesh and aim higher, aim for the Spirit of God. Let's be more God-like, guys. We don't have to keep ourselves in a defiled, animalistic state. In Proverbs 4:23, "Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life." So again, it's so important that we protect our hearts from ungodly influences, and that includes media, music, entertainment, other people. Protect your heart, protect your spirit at all costs. So I want to end this on a powerful note, okay? Because the fact is that you as an individual, I as an individual, we have the authority to tread upon serpents and scorpions. Jesus gave us that authority, okay? We have the power to dismantle one of the most satanic industries. The fact is that the porn industry, human trafficking industry, is one of the most lucrative industries in the entire world. And that's all because of our little collective actions. You know, you might think you're not making a difference in the world by, being in your bedroom. No one's watching you. Nobody knows. And you're behind a screen and you're watching porn. And you think that, like, nobody knows. There's no consequences. But this is how we make these industries incredibly powerful. And if these industries have all this money, all this power in the world, you don't think they use this money to infiltrate our society, our education system, to continue normalizing these things? I don't think the pornographic content of LGBT books aimed for kids is a coincidence. There's a sick agenda to sexualize them. So you have all the power to dismantle this industry. And even if you don't watch pornography, share this video. Like, have someone be aware about what's going on. If you have friends that watch pornography, encourage them to, think differently. There's a lot of people that don't see a problem with this. Challenge them. Let them know that there's a better way. That is it for today, guys. If you enjoyed the show, please share this episode. I would deeply appreciate if you guys drop a like, drop a comment. Let me know what you guys think. Please subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it. I'll see you guys next time. So yeah, now it's time for you to stay in your lane, and I'll stay in mine.